Hi, Professor Schimmel back with part 4. I don't know. Anyways, I'm hoping the last segment for the protozoans. And I'm picking up the discussion with phylum Ciliata. And these organisms are motile by means of cilia. And let me catch up on my notes here. Oh yeah, here we go. And now as far as the complexity of these single-celled organisms goes, the members of phylum Ciliata are the most highly evolved. They are the most complex. They are capable of reproducing asexually by binary fission. That just means simple cell division, one parent cell to two daughter cells. Or they can exchange genetic information through conjugation, very similar to bacterial conjugation. Now, the ciliates have a large nucleus called the macronucleus, and that's where all of the the bread and butter, the day-to-day genetic information is going to be stored. But then they may also have anywhere from 1 to 50 very tiny called micronuclei in their cytoplasm as well. When the ciliates conjugate, it is micronuclei that they copy and send to the recipient cell. Okay, the only example of a ciliate I want to talk to you about is Ballontidium coli. We've looked at it in lab, or we will look at it in lab, both a trophozoite and a cyst stage. So we know the cyst stage is going to be the infectious stage. Ingestion of fecal contaminated food, water containing the cyst. But this particular organism, Ballontidium, is only occasionally a problem when it infects humans. And so we say it's, just occasionally parasitic in humans. Other species of mammal can be infected, but when it does cause problems, the main symptom will be dysentery. All right, so they call that Ballontidium dysentery. And the treatment is metronidazole or Flagyl. All right, on to phylum Sporozoa. They are non-motile when mature, complex life cycles, one or more intermediate hosts, and some of the life cycles are also simple or direct. What I've got for you guys are two examples in this phylum. One is Plasmodium. That is the protozoan that causes a disease known as malaria. That one has a complex life cycle. And then we'll talk about toxoplasmosis, and that organism has a simpler life cycle. Okay, let's see. Plasmodium, transmitted by a blood-sucking arthropod vector called the Anopheles mosquito, through the bite of an infected Anopheles mosquito. When that mosquito bites a human, it is the sporozoite stage of the parasite that's going to be transmitted to humans. Now, several stages in their life cycle, in the life cycle of Plasmodium, there are 4 species of Plasmodium that cause malaria in humans. One of them causes a form of the disease that's almost always fatal. One of them causes a form of the disease that's, if you can say this about malaria, is relatively benign, and then the other 2 are kind of in between those 2 extremes. As I started to say, pleomorphic, right? The sporozoite is the stage that's transmitted to humans. It's the infectious stage. In lab, we are looking at what's called the ring stage trophozoite, and that is a tiny little round structure that is actually going to be found inside of host red blood cells. So this is, at least for part of its life cycle, an intracellular parasite. The symptoms, now they're rather complex, characterized by a series of chills and fevers and damage to blood vessels and other organs as possible as well. But because this is not a disease, at least at this time, that we see very often in the United States, I'm going to leave it at that. We may talk about it in more detail when we're together in lecture. Treatment is also complex, so I'm going to leave that be for now. So on your lecture exam, unless I tell you otherwise, I will not ask you for a treatment for malaria, okay? All right, and then the other example of a sporozoan is called Toxoplasma gondii. And this is a cosmopolitan parasite, causes usually not a big deal. A large percentage of the population is infected with this organism. It's fairly ubiquitous. And most of the time, if you're even vaguely healthy, it isn't going to cause any problem. After the initial infection, the patient may either be asymptomatic, or they may have some very mild symptoms such as a slightly elevated temperature, a little bit of a skin rash, maybe some chills. I've got a note here. It's estimated that 30 to 50% of the population has been infected with this organism. I would imagine the number is probably even higher than that. Now, it is it is a significant parasite in our population. I've got a note here, more than 60 million carriers, but most of them are asymptomatic. That's a lot of people. All right, now, the entire life cycle of Toxoplasma can occur in cats, either domestic or wild cats. Several stages in the life cycle of Toxoplasma. There is a stage called the oocyst, or oocyst if you prefer, that's passed in the cat feces. The most common way that humans become infected is by ingestion of that oocyst, that was in cat feces. And cats become infected by eating infected rodents or birds or other small animals. Okay, so infection. So ingestion of the oocyst. This could occur when changing the kitty litter box. Please tell me you wash your hands if you do that afterwards. Ingesting contaminated soil. I'm thinking little kids here. Eating raw vegetables straight from the garden. Okay, love to garden, and I do remember, back in the ignorance is bliss days, when I would garden, I'd like maybe pull a carrot out of the ground and just sort of wipe it off, and not a good idea. Okay, so we're not doing that anymore. Another way that you can become infected is by eating undercooked, contaminated meat. And I've got a list here that includes pork, lamb, venison, and bear. Don't eat bear. You could become infected by drinking contaminated water, not so common. Organ transplant, that's very rare. So when is this a problem? A couple of scenarios. One is this, a vertical transmission from mother to child. So let's talk about this scenario a little bit. Let's say a woman was infected with Toxoplasma before she became pregnant. Then we don't have an issue. But let's say she is naive to this infection, she becomes pregnant, and she becomes infected with Toxoplasma during the course of her pregnancy. The protozoan will cross the placental barrier of the fetus and enter its central nervous system, causing significant damage, if not loss of the fetus. Now, the severity of the damage, that's going to depend upon when in the pregnancy mom became infected. If she becomes infected early in the pregnancy, then she may have a spontaneous abortion. She may miscarry. Later in the pregnancy, the fetus may survive to a live birth, but we can see devastating central nervous system damage, including, and I think you may have photos in here. Let me just look to see what you've got. Yeah, including a symptom. This is very unfortunate. I'm probably wasting my time holding this up, but this poor child has a condition called hydrocephalus, which means water on the brain, an enlarged brain, deafness, mental retardation, spina bifida, all sorts of damage possible to central nervous system and other organs as well. All right, now that is through a congenital transmission. Now, the other situation where toxoplasmosis is a significant and life-threatening disease is when it occurs in severely immunocompromised individuals. Now, it really doesn't matter if they've been infected previously or not, but if an individual becomes severely immunocompromised, late stages of AIDS, terminal cancer patients, either an old infection could become reactivated, not that common, or if they become infected again, remember the organism is, it's fairly common, the organism can cause severe damage to the blood vessels, central nervous system, and may actually be the cause of death. All right, I've got some treatments in your outline. I'm gonna leave it at that and let you read it there because I'm hoping to be able to use these videos for a while, and I know these treatments have been changing in recent years. So with that, we are done with the section on parasitology and our survey of parasitic protozoans. Thanks for watching, you guys. Viruses are going to be next.